Hello, everybody, and welcome to this very special interview as we look ahead to Thursday's huge Europa League semi-final first leg against RB Leipzig. I'm delighted to say I'm joined by German football writer Adam Kahn, all the way from Dusseldorf. Adam, thank you very much for joining us.
Yeah, it's a real pleasure to be here and excited for the match.
Yeah, most definitely. Now you've wrote a brilliant piece on Leipzig on the Rangers Review site this morning, Adam. A fantastic insight into the club. I was just interested in finding a little bit more about them. But before we look at the game, in terms of yourself, can you tell us a wee bit about a background about yourself and your knowledge of German football?
Yeah, so I actually grew up in the United States, and then I moved to Germany around 2 years ago just for study reasons and then also for work. And yeah, my father's German, so even in the US, we always pretty much grew up with German football in the house. I remember those Bayern dominant seasons like none other, and of course also the one where Wolfsburg won it in the early, I believe that was around 2009 with Grafit and Dzeko, so that was one of my earliest memories. And yeah, I mean, whilst the rest of the United States was pretty much only focused on the Premier League, it was always German football for me.
Yeah, fantastic. And of course, it's a huge match on the horizon for both clubs, of course, RB Leipzig and Rangers. In terms of Leipzig, though, they've been, it's fair to say it's been rather controversial, the rise through the ranks, hasn't it, in recent years? What's the general feeling towards the club amongst German people over there?
Yeah, I mean, I've been watching German football longer than Leipzig's been around, so that should pretty much say everything you need to know about them. I think that there's still a lot of animosity regarding Leipzig in Germany, a lot of fan boycotts still happening, a lot of times fans won't even turn up against Leipzig games because it feels like a disrespect to the 50+1 rules and then kind of how German culture goes about football. And I think that obviously from a perspective of how Germany has performed in the Europa League recently, where we haven't made it to the final in quite some time, there is a sense that you would like to see them make it to the final just to actually bring European silverware in that sense back to Germany. But on the other hand, when you had to pick between a club like Eintracht Frankfurt, which are with a rich European fan base and who've really had such a long history in this competition as well, between those two, you'd as a neutral perspective, you'd always lean towards Eintracht Frankfurt.
Yeah, certainly. And in terms of this season, how have Leipzig been doing domestically and in Europe leading up to this game?
Yeah, it's really a tale of two halves. Just on the one hand, you had that Jesse Marsch reign who came in. He's of course at Leeds United now, but he came in and following a Julian Nagelsmann's departure to Bayern over the summer, and he was really an internal appointment. He came for the RB Salzburg, came for Red Bull New York as well. Also was the RB Leipzig assistant coach under Ralf Rangnick. So he's been around for quite some time, and he felt like a good one to come in after Julian Nagelsmann's departure. But in a sense, he really did not gel with the squad. This is a squad that had developed a lot in possession in the past few years under Nagelsmann. They'd moved away from that complete pressing and vertical style that's typical of Red Bull and moved to a more free 5-2-1 free 5-2 possession oriented style, which should also be dangerous when they had the ball and didn't necessarily always need to just look for ways to hurt the opposition when they made mistakes. And that's something that Jesse Marsch really struggled with, because this was a side with the likes of Danny Olmo, Konrad Leimer, Emil Forsberg, Christopher Nkunku, who I imagine we'll get on to. These are players who are really thrive with the ball at their feet and don't necessarily want to spend long stretches of the game without the ball. And so when he was eventually fired in late December, they brought in Domenico Tedesco, and he's obviously worked alongside Nagelsmann for a while at TSG Hoffenheim. They did their coaching badges together as well. And funny story, Tedesco actually did better on his coaching badges than Nagelsmann, so make of that what you will. And Tedesco, he's really brought new life into this side. He's reverted back to that formation that was likened under Julian Nagelsmann, and he's found a lot of happiness in that. I mean, Leipzig has moved from 5 points off the relegation zone to now into the top four, into DFB Pokal final, and also European semifinal.
Yeah, in terms of Europe reaching this stage, I mean, it's no mean feat, of course, and they went via the Champions League, where they finished third, and then heading into the Europa League knockout stages. Of course, they had that bye in the round of 16. But how have they performed in the main in Europe, Adam?
Yeah, I mean, obviously you have to look at it from the Champions perspective, and that was obviously mostly under Jesse Marsch. I believe Domenico Tedesco had one match there, which was a dead rubber at the end. And with a group of PSG and Manchester City, Leipzig were never going to be favorites, particularly a Leipzig side who just weren't playing their best football. So I imagine that under Tedesco now, we could have potentially seen them come out of that group unscathed because they also dropped important points away to Club Bruges, where had they won that, I believe they would have been level with PSG in the end. So maybe we would have seen something differently, but ultimately, as you said, they dropped down into the Europa League, and there they've done pretty well. They are yet to be defeated. They have gone through Real Sociedad and Atalanta, who are both two very impressive sides who I don't think anybody would be too surprised to see either one of them in the semifinals now. So yeah, I think that Leipzig are the favorites, not just for this fixture, but for the remaining matches in the Europa League, should they make it to the final. And they will definitely be looking at not only winning a cup and silverware in Germany, but also doing so in Europe.
Yeah, you mentioned Jesse March, of course, joined Leeds United. Has it been a smooth transition with Tedesco coming in? Does he play a similar brand of football?
Yeah, as I said, I think that he plays a similar brand of football to what Leipzig was playing a year ago under Julian Nagelsmann, and I think that that's really what's made them so successful, because he has a lot more of a focus on how do we operate in possession, how do we control games more of this squad rather than just look to react to the opposition, and that's something that Jesse Marsch wasn't necessarily able to get across, and it was a lot more frantic and hectic. I mean, the matches were very, very exciting. You rarely saw either side not score a goal, but if you're talking about the level of talent that Leipzig has, they shouldn't be every single match looking just to do almost a basketball style. We score, they score, we score, they score, and hope that we outscore opponents. This more measured tactic under Domenico Tedesco has seen them be a lot more successful.
Yeah. Now you mentioned Nkunku. Of course, he's the big star, the player that Rangers know more about and are wary of. How good is he, Adam?
Yeah, I mean, how good is he? How much time do we have? Right, he is a phenomenal talent, and there's just so many figures that we use in that article for Rangers Review that just really stand out. And I think first and foremost, it's the fact that no player in all of Europe has scored or assisted more goals in 2022 than Christopher Nkunku. So that just shows you how good he is and how much form he is on right now. I think that we talked about so much of the talent this Leipzig side, the likes of Forsberg, Yusuf Poulsen, Andre Silva, Dominik Szoboszlai, right? There's so many of them that can hurt sides, but Christopher Nkunku still stands out. And you looked at it from the perspective of how Leipzig perform when he scores or has an assist, or how Leipzig performs when he doesn't. I mean, it's just, there's worlds between that. If Nkunku scores as an assist, Leipzig have 2.71 points per game in the Bundesliga. So that sees them narrowly behind Bayern in any title race, versus when he doesn't score or assist or isn't even in the squad, then they go all the way down to 0.92, which would see them in the relegation zone right now in the Bundesliga. So there's just worlds between how this Leipzig side performs with and without Nkunku. And yeah, if we talk about how Rangers need to address this side, a lot of it has to be, how do we make sure that Nkunku stays off the score sheet?
Yeah, I was going to touch on that. How do Rangers keep him quiet then? Is it a case of doubling up, or can you stop him?
Yeah, doubling, tripling. I mean, how many do you have that you can put over there? But honestly, I think a lot more of it is just about how do you reduce the amount of passes that Nkunku receives, right? Because it almost feels like when Nkunku is in these dangerous positions in the final third, then it's impossible to stop him. But can you potentially reduce the amount of touches that he actually gets on the ball? And I think a lot of that has to do with how do we make sure that the center backs, guys like Josko Gvardiol, aren't able to play those line breaking passes? How do we ensure that Kevin Campbell, Konrad Leimer, whoever starts in midfield, isn't able to find his feet, or Angelino also wide? How do we make sure that Leipzig isn't getting into 2v1 situations on the left flank, where you have a guy like Nkunku driving at you, but then also one of the best left backs, or at least the best attacking left backs in world football, and Angelino coming at you? So I think a lot of these are just about how do we reduce the amount of times that we get into 2v1 favors, or it's in Leipzig's favor? How do we reduce the amount of times that they are in 2v1 against us? And of course, how do we make sure that Nkunku isn't in those dangerous pockets of space where it can actually hurt us with goals and assists?
Yeah, of course, that's clear dangers for Rangers. In terms of possible weaknesses, Adam, is there any chinks in the armoury that Rangers should be looking to exploit?
Yeah, I think that a big one here is actually about the absence of Willy Orban, and also the absence of Mohamed Simakan. Just those are two starting center backs that can be a big factor in this fixture, and specifically with the fact that the first leg is in Leipzig. So I think that Leipzig are going to have the onus on them to go out there and really shows something. We also know with Rangers' away record in the Europa League this season hasn't necessarily been that great. So Leipzig will really look to do something at home, and missing those two players will be key. I think specifically Willy Orban, because I believe he is 28 or 29. He's one of the elder statesmen in the side. This is a Leipzig side that are one of the youngest in the competition and the youngest in Europe at all this season. So having a player of his experience there to almost marshal a back line is absolutely key. And if you look at the fact that a guy like Josko Gvardiol now needs to take over a lot more leadership at just 20 years old, and I mean, he's a fantastic center back. He has a lot of composure in possession, an absolute battering ram defensively. But I mean, he's in his first season in the Bundesliga, doesn't even have a really grip of the German language yet. So there's a lot of onus on him to really step up in this match. And I don't necessarily think that without Willy Orban, Leipzig has what it takes to keep a clean sheet in this fixture.
Yeah. What's this perception been like towards Rangers over there at the moment, Adam? Of course, with the 4-2 win over Borussia Dortmund in their own backyard, I guess, has that made a lot of people stand up and take notice?
Yeah, of course. I think that without that victory against Dortmund, or had they never played, I think that would be very different. I think a lot of the people would look at Rangers and say, this is by far the easiest draw in the semifinals. But with that defeat against with that win against Dortmund now, it completely flips the switch. And I think that there's a lot of respect for Rangers. There's always been a lot of respect for Rangers because of the fantastic fan base and just about Scottish football in general. If you compare German football to any other type of football on the continent, I think Scottish football is probably the most similar in that respect to how the fan base and how the fan culture really interacts with the football. But I think, yeah, there's a lot of respect for Rangers and how far they've come. And I think it's at that point when you're in a European semifinal, you're so close to a final. Now is not the time to look at opponents and say, oh yeah, easy opponent, and yeah, we'll just walk right through them. I think at that point, as you probably see with Leipzig, right, or with any of the remaining opponents like West Ham or Frankfurt, there just isn't anyone easy left.
Yeah, and of course, the second leg is at Ibrox. The fans have been certainly the 12th man this season in Europe. In terms of the Red Bull Arena, Adam, what can the Rangers players expect when they walk out the tunnel there?
Yeah, I think that the Red Bull Arena is not necessarily the greatest arena for fan atmosphere in Germany, and it's not just because of the fan base of RBL being relatively young and not necessarily having that yellow wall or like in Schalke with the Nord Tribune having that really massive fan standing section or anything like that. I think a big part of it is the fact that the stands are just so far away from the pitch. They're almost elevated above the pitch in a sense. And it gives it almost like a Coliseum atmosphere where it feels like you're almost looking down on the field the entire time. So yeah, it wouldn't necessarily be my favorite stadium in all of Germany, but hey, I mean, it's still a European semifinal. So there's going to be more than enough great moments for the Rangers fans to really get their teeth into.
Yeah, and they're certainly travelling over in their numbers as well, so it should be a right good atmosphere. Finally, Adam, before we let you go, I'm going to put you on the spot here in terms of a score prediction. How's this match on Thursday ending up?
Yeah, I mean, we're obviously on a Rangers podcast, so I need to watch what I say a little bit. But unfortunately, I think that with the home leg being in Leipzig, I do see Leipzig winning this match. I think it will be extremely close. I think that like any European semifinal, I mean, I can't really remember a European semifinal in the past that is completely one-sided in that respect. But I think that Leipzig will ultimately just have more individual difference makers. We talked about Nkunku, but also Szoboszlai, Silva, right? These players that just have that ability to, when they get one chance, they'll definitely take it. And I think that at the moment, Leipzig has that ahead of Rangers. But I think that it'll be a tight scoreline, and then with all to play at the Ibrox next week, and we all know what can happen there.
Yeah, looking forward to two brilliant games. Well, Adam Cannon, it's great having you on, folks. If you can read Adam's piece on the website, just head over to rangersreview.co.uk. And if you want to take advantage of the website as well, we've got that great offer on just £1 for 2 months worth of content. Just head over to rangersreview.co.uk/subscribe for all the details. Remember, you get entered into a prize draw for a signed first team jersey. Adam, thanks very much for joining us, and enjoy the game.